Hello, everybody, and welcome again to our video series. This is Brian Burke, the editor of the Music and Sound Retailer magazine. Thank you for joining us. I know we haven't had a video in at least a few weeks now, so I'm really excited to have some star power. Let's call it that way, right?
Yeah.
David Starr, and he's a really good, combination of things in our industry. I mean, he's a performer. He has his own guitar and he owns a retail store. I mean, he owns an MI store. So, I mean, look at this. I mean, we got like all three in one. You're like the perfect triple play, David. So thank you for joining us.
Well, thanks for having me. It's a blessing and a curse to do all those things, I guess. Particularly in the last year, it's been interesting.
Yeah, let's start a little about your musical career before we get into the retail part, which I know everyone is, and the guitar, which everyone's going to want to hear about.
Okay.
So tell me, you've been working with some big time acts. I know that John Oates, right, on Hall and Oates, you work with him. So tell me about some things you got going on, and if you're going to have some live gigs after this whole pandemic ends, I hope that would be nice to see, right?
Yeah. Well, just historically, I grew up in playing cover bands around the Northwest Arkansas, Oklahoma area, and I just grew up doing what a lot of guys did that wanted to play in bands, and a few years back, I moved out here to Western Colorado and opened this guitar store. It was the second iteration of it. It opened originally in Little Rock, Arkansas in '98. But anyway, as a musician, a few years back, I thought, as much as I enjoy playing in a band, I need to make myself get better at doing what I'm doing, which is writing songs and singing and trying to get my guitar playing up to speed. I'm a recovering drummer, so that's what I started out doing. So fast forward, I just started booking gigs for myself and went out and booked these 3-hour gigs and made myself get better and began writing with other people. Along the way, I got to know John Oates. He has a place a couple hours from here, and I know some people he knew. And anyway, one thing led to another, and we did a gig together, then another and another. And he's produced 2 of my records, and we write occasionally. And I'm bugging him now to do another deal with me, so we'll see where we get. But the live gig thing in the last year, it was obviously a letdown for everybody, not just people at my level, but people at the big arena level like John and Daryl and a lot of big acts that have just been put out of work. Not only the musicians, but the crew and the caterers and the people that sell beer and all that. So, but my journey, I've been really, really fortunate, and I've gotten to work with a lot of cool people along the way. Some of them at John's level, and a lot of them just at the level of, hey, we're good players and we want to get out there and slog it out.
Right. Well, great. That's congratulations. That's great. I grew up listening to those guys. So I mean,
Yeah.
I I really remember Rich Girl and Man Eater, and man, they had so many hit songs. So
The
uh,
first time I wrote with John, he had his back to me working on something on the laptop. We were working on this tune that I sort of showed up with the start of, and he turned around and he said, "This is going to be kind of a pop song. Is that okay?" And I said, "Well, you would know." And sure enough, it turned out great. So anyway, he's been a real mentor, and he's made me sing better in the studio. So I owe him a lot.
I even remember in the '80s listening to the Walkman. I'm sure you remember,
Oh
and I had
yeah,
like
yeah,
a yellow one with a cassette. And I kept replaying "You've Lost That Loving Feeling," that their version of it.
yep.
I don't know what made me do it, but I just really love that version of "You've Lost That Loving Feeling." So
That
uh,
was apparently sort of an afterthought. They were about to wrap up a session, and they just said, "Let's give that a shot." You never know it's going to work, and so they threw it on the record, and there you go.
yeah, yeah, great stuff, and congrats on everything you've done in your career.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I want to ask you, you have a signature guitar you have coming out. I know you wanted to announce that, a limited edition one. So tell me, you're working with Breedlove on that, right? And,
Yeah.
and tell me why you wanted to work with. I mean, you have a lot of brands you sell.
hmm
So why did you want to work with Breedlove? And tell us about the product itself. Tell us about the guitar and what makes it cool.
Well, a little history. My store is in Western Colorado in a town called Cedar Edge. It's a town of 2,000 people. So when people first walk in my store, they look around at this, what's a pretty cool little store, and they go, "What are you doing in the middle of nowhere?" And I go, "Well, it's where I want to be." So I've had to work maybe a little extra hard to make it work some years, particularly after the recession and this last year and so forth. But Anyway, Breedlove is one of the companies I've worked with. I know Molly Bedell. I don't, Tom's wife, and they own the company now. And, but they're my rep for Breedlove is in Salt Lake City. A guy named Steve Trump. And one day we were talking, and he made me aware of the Jeff Bridges guitar. Excuse me, the Jeff Bridges guitar that another dealer had commissioned out there in California. And there was somebody in the Salt Lake area that commissioned a guitar, and I thought I've always wanted to do that, but I thought I'd have to buy 100 of them, and I wasn't up for that. And he said, no, for as few as 5 pieces, you can do this, and it would be one of their American-made custom pieces. So um, I originally was going to do 5, then I thought, well, I'll do a couple more because I wanted to keep one for myself and wanted John to have one because he helped write the song that inspired it. Long story short, there was a song on my last album that John worked with me on, John Oates, called Rise Up Again. And that song came out of a really bad, vivid dream I had while I was in the hospital a couple of years ago. I was in the middle of making this record. And it involved my father and grandfather coming to me in this dream. Bottom line, when I came out of the dream, I wrote this song and called Rise Up Again. And the idea was that it wasn't my time yet, even though it was a pretty serious medical condition. Um, Fast forward to 2020 when there's all this turmoil and we're all trying to climb out of this thing, and it seemed appropriate. So, I thought, well, what if we had that on
Right.
the fretboard? So they said, yeah, we can do that, and I've got a pretty nice collection of vintage stuff, but I thought, well, I like Breedlove stuff because it's a little more contemporary. They're less one of those big giant established companies that we've all dealt with in the past. I like them fine too. But anyway, I said, could we give it a little bit of a vintage vibe? So we did what sort of looks like a jumbo, but it isn't. It's their concerto body. Um, anyway, they do great work, and they let me spec it out the way I wanted to. And now I wish I'd done 10 of them because I sold all but one. But anyway,
Well, I'm
might make
glad to
some
hear
more.
that you're healthy. I hope right now, and you're with
Thank
us
you. Yeah, I'm
still.
good.
I mean, that's first and foremost. I mean,
Yep.
health right now is number one on everyone's mind.
Well,
And so I'm glad to hear that you made it out okay. And that
yeah, I'm good. I'm good.
quite a vivid dream. Yeah, I saw the guitars on your website. You only have one left, so probably after this video appears, you'll probably have that sold.
Well, and they said, well, we can make more once we've done the first 5. Then the die is cast, and we can certainly go back in and do some more. The question is, does that change the exclusivity of having a limited run of 7? In the scheme of things, probably not if somebody wants one, and we could certainly do it. But it turned out really, really nice, and they were great to work with, very accommodating. They kind of let me do it the way I wanted to do it. But it's still very much a Breedlove guitar.
Okay, yeah. Now let's get on to the last your store course,
Mm-hmm.
Starr's Guitars in Cedar Ridge, Colorado, like you said. Um, Tell me a little bit about the business. Right now, I would say the guitar business. You sell. I know your combo. You sell a bunch of guitars though. Those have been hot. I mean, there's no question about that. So tell me what your take is on that. Are you doing well there? But is it hurting some other areas? I mean, obviously, if you have, for people who have rentals, that could be difficult right now. Band and orchestra products could be, could be tough sledding for sure.
Yeah.
So tell me what's going on at your store and what you see.
Well, just historically, when I first came here, people came in the store and said, "Well, I hope it works for you." And I said, "Well, I don't really have a plan B, so I hope it works too." And I'd had 3 years of experience with this store in Little Rock, Arkansas, and then my lease ran out, and I thought, well, it's time to move back to Colorado because I'd lived in the state before. So in 2008, I kind of learned a hard lesson about having too much inventory, and I'm sure I'm not the only one, but it was an interesting thing because I had several people working for me. I had a lot of inventory, and I was trying to be all things to all people. I had a keyboard section and a drum section and recording gear and all that. And what I kind of decided over time was, what kind of stuff can people go online and buy on Amazon and everywhere else that probably stocking a lot of that stuff in here didn't make any sense because I don't have the foot traffic some big metropolitan areas do. So I've gravitated more and more towards just having guitars, mandolins, lots of ukuleles, the kind of stuff that I can put in somebody's hand and they can feel it and go, yeah, I want this. I do sell some interfaces and some microphones, and I've got a nice home studio, so I can speak from some experience, and I've worked in some nice studios in Nashville. So I try to I've tried to sort of funnel it down to what's manageable. I've got one employee and myself, and my repair guy was with me for about 19 years, and he recently retired, so I'm now the repair guy too.
Okay.
Um, but there are things I don't know how to do. I'm not a refret guy, so if somebody brings a refret in, I got a guy a few miles away that I can send it to. So it's become more efficient over time. Uh, what happened in 2020, our state mandated that we close down for about 4 weeks, maybe five last year, I forget. But once we opened back up, um, people have been pretty respectful by and large about wearing masks when we ask them to, and we've sold. Our business was up, and I think that was the case for a lot of people. Um, I guess bottom line is I've decided I'm not going to be Sweetwater, and I'm not going to be some of the, I'm not going to be that, and so I'm going to quit trying to be that. I'm trying to figure out what we're good at and just be really good at it. And a lot of that's giving people a good customer experience and spending time with them.
Okay, great, great.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for the information. Is being a well, most of the time when we can, you being a performer, is that give you an advantage because people know who you are and they trust you more, or does it take too much time away from your business? I mean, how do you kind of balance that?
Well, there have been years when I play 150 nights a year. Now, some of those are local, so I don't have to go anywhere. But there are other years when I go out for a couple of weeks at a time on the road, and I've always had help that I said, when I'm gone, it's your store. Treat it like it's your store. Don't make stupid deals and don't let people talk you into stuff you don't want to do. And if you have a question, call me. And that's the beauty of it now is you've got a phone always in your pocket, and things are you can run a business, a little differently than maybe you could 20 years ago. Um, I think it probably enhances things because people come in and go, "Oh, you're that guy that's made some records and you sing and stuff." And I can also say to somebody, "I would take this guitar to a gig and play it," and that's kind of become um, sort of my barometer on what I'll have in the store. I'm not going to have. I don't have a lot of $5,000 guitars. I've got a lot of guitars under $500 because that's where people are, to a large extent. But they're $500 guitars that if I had to grab one and play a gig tonight, I would feel okay doing it. So I think that's a good way to approach it. And it seems to work. Um, and I'm dealing with fewer vendors than I used to. And I don't let any vendor really tell me how much stuff to buy because that's not in my best interest. And I understand if some people can do that, but I've tried it and it doesn't work for me. So um, you got to be happy and you got to work with people you like.
Yeah, no doubt, no doubt.
Yeah,
Okay, well,
especially after last year.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Last year changed a lot of things. There's no question. The 12 months, I guess, since March of 2020 to March of 2021. I guess we could even be more specific about that 12-month period.
Yeah.
Has changed everything in the world. I mean, I look at things and people are telling me this happened in 2019, and I say that seems like 10 years ago, 20 years ago now.
Well, and I think as it relates to performances, you know, I think if we think it's going to be the same, I think we make a mistake, and I think we have to be ready for any kind of shift that it takes to do things a little differently. Before we came on, we were talking about the live streaming thing. Sometimes that works pretty well, other times not so much. But I think it's caused a lot of people. I've had people call me and go, for instance, I couldn't get USB mics for the longest time because everybody wanted them. And so now I've got a good supply of them and I sell them. But I take them home and get them out of the box and learn how to use them so I can tell people how to do it. So I think you just have to adapt. You got to be ready. If you think it's going to be the same a year from now, it won't be. So.
I mean, I'm glad that you got your PA now. I know it was such a bad time and a difficult time, and I'm just glad that I could find paper towels and toilet paper much more easy now.
Yeah, remember that when that was our first thing we worried
I
about.
mean, that you couldn't even find that for a while. So I mean, I said, wow, everyone's hoarding that. you know.
Well, yeah, I'm in a town of 2,200 people. All of a sudden, there was no paper in the whole grocery store, and it's like we don't even have that many people, you know. So anyway, it's been an interesting thing
You have to
and a
wonder.
lesson in human behavior. I'll say that.
No, no doubt. Well, thank you. I want to thank David Starr, for all the information. I appreciate it. Again, he's got his own signature guitar now. He's a performer and he's the owner of Starr's Guitars in Colorado. So thanks for all the information. It's great to
Thank
get
you,
your
man.
different perspectives.
Sure appreciate it.